after the number 8 seeded UConn Huskies lost to their number 1 seed Florida Gators 77-75 in the second round of the NCAA Tournament on Sunday. UConn head coach Dan Hurley turned to Baylor players and coaches who were preparing for their game against Duke and dropped multiple expletives. Joey Ellis of the Queen City News in Charlotte captured Hurley's rant, posted to his X account, and suggested he was discussing the game's officiating. This was the clip that he captured while Hurley was heading into the locker room. Take a listen.
I hope they don't do that to you, Baylor. I hope they don't do that to you, John.
So that was the clip. It's screaming expletives. Hope you don't screw them like you screwed us. Not a great
talking
look.
about the refs?
So it's supposedly talking about the refs. It was not great, but here's what's really bad. The UConn men's basketball director of communications, Bobby Mullen, told Ellis that he would, quote, ruin his life if he didn't delete the clip. Not a great look. And supposedly there's an investigation going on now with UConn. They could potentially lose eligibility next year. There's a whole investigation going on right now. This is the exact quote. There's breaking news. The NCAA and Raleigh police have launched an investigation into UConn's athletic department. Following the Huskies' loss to Florida, Dan Hurley went on an expletive-filled rant that was caught on video by a member of the media. UConn's director of men's basketball, we talked about this, quote, ruin his life. I'm told the NCAA is considering possible postseason ban and loss of scholarship spots. Local law enforcement is also investigating the matter as making threats is illegal in North Carolina. So there we go. Massive potential scandal.
Yeah, well, Dan Hurley's a sore loser. That's what it comes down to.
That's what I've been saying.
He didn't have the team that was going to take him to the championship this year. That was obvious. He got beaten by St. John's twice. And I don't think that – and the guy can't – he runs his mouth too much. He's cuckoo over there on the sidelines. I'm surprised he's been as successful as he has. It's definitely the players, not him.
Well – I want to dig into this because I said, I don't know how long ago, probably a couple weeks back, might have been a month back at this point, because we went to the UConn St. John's game in Madison Square Garden. I paid very close attention to Dan Hurley because I knew what Dan Hurley does. He loves to talk to the refs, loves to complain about them. And every single TV timeout, every single break, he was talking and chirping to the refs. That's exactly what he was doing. That's exactly who he is. And now we have a situation where the UConn Huskies choked this game away. They were down, came back, and choked the game away. And Hurley's now talking to Baylor, saying, I hope they don't screw you like they screwed us, talking about the referees. How about this? From the 7:15 mark to the 28-second mark, how about don't make only 2 jump shots the entire time? Just going to throw that out there. How about your players stop choking in the biggest moments? How about the fact that now, after winning back-to-back championships, you go 24-11 overall and 14-6 in Big East play and get swept by the lowly St. John's Red Storm? Just going to throw that out there. Maybe we'll call it lowly at this point because St. John's just got their reputation back as being decent, and I think they'll continue it. And how about this? How about the UConn men's basketball director of communications not threaten a reporter for exposing who Dan Hurley is? Potentially, maybe a private moment, although he wasn't exactly being quiet about that comment. He was yelling it to a crowd in front of media members in the tunnel. And if that's who Dan Hurley is, and we bring the same sort of criticism saying, well, this is not a great look for UConn, and he keeps doing it, and he's blaming the press for how bad of a look that they're portraying on him, but all we're doing is playing his moments. All we're doing is repeating things he said. All we're doing is shining a light on his behavior during timeouts when decisions don't go his way. How is that unfair to the press to expose this type of behavior? And I'm not sure that winning back-to-back NCAA championships can really allow you to be a baby on the sideline. How if things don't go right for you, a ref turns your back, and you say, don't turn your back on me, I'm the best coach in the sport. I don't know if that's exactly true, because UConn wasn't a bust before you got there. They won a national championship, 6 years before you got there? I think St. John's, Rick Pitino, is a better coach than you because he's turned around every single school that he's been at. And it doesn't take him 4 years to make him prominent. It takes him 2. When they were complete busts 2 years before he got there, year 1 is a building period because he has to deal with players on his team and finally trying to recruit guys. And then year 2, we've seen every single school that he goes to. By year 2, he makes them a serious contender and puts them in the NCAA tournament. Yeah, Rick, we could say that Dan Hurley is the best coach in college basketball right now because he just won back-to-back NCAA championships. But next year, we're not going to say he's the best coach because we'll probably say the best coach is whoever wins the Natty this year. So we can't excuse this behavior. Now when you're threatening a guy, Joey Ellis, for exposing this type of behavior after you're ranting and raving about the refs, it's a terrible look indeed. But this is who Dan Hurley is. And what I hate is that when I point it out, UConn fans are like, well, you're not being fair, or you're just a hater. I'm just a hater for talking about what everybody else is saying? If you could finally say, if UConn fans out there could say, you know what? He's a baby, but he's the UConn head coach. He's our baby. It's okay.
Right, yeah.
We accept his behavior. That's fine. But don't come at me saying, well, he's a back-to-back national championship winner, so this behavior is allowed.
Yeah,
I don't think at that level
I
it
think
should
catching
be.
him on film, taking the low road there with all of that, four-letter words and blaming the refs for his loss, I think that's very unprofessional. And you're not going to win the national championship every year. You win it back to back. Not many people have done that.
Correct.
Did you really expect you were going to win the national championship this year with the record that you had and the way you played in the Big East? It was unlikely.
Correct.
I mean, they played well against Florida. You had the lead there for a while, but as you said,
From
it wasn't the refs. From
to 28 seconds, they made two jump shots.
Two jump shots.
Two jump shots the whole time.
That's what cost them the game. And the other team, the guy, what was his name? He had 20. I think he had 23 points. He hit some clutch shots there at the end. And I like that coach. He was very calm. I didn't see him running his mouth with the refs as much as Dan Hurley did. So good luck to Florida.
You talk about Walter Clayton.
Walter Clayton. He had a great game.
He had made 5 of 8 from 3.
Yeah, he was.
They shot nearly 50. How about this? How about play defense from 3? You shot 47% from 3 compared to your 27.6.
Yeah.
Maybe play a little bit of defense. Should throw that out there.
Yeah.
Just maybe. You have some big guys out there. And also, there was a clip during a break when they were reviewing a play or whatever. You could see Dan Hurley telling, I think it's Samson Johnson, to flop. And then on the ensuing play, which was an inbound play, they try flopping, and the refs call him out on that and say it was a flop going the other way. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Hurley tries.
Let me ask you,
Yeah.
who do you think is going to win it now?
Winning the NCAA tournament? I mean, there's one obvious answer. It's Duke. It's Duke. It's Duke. They have 3 top-tier guys. They're playing Arizona on Thursday. That's going to be a hell of a game. Maryland just got it shouldn't be controversial, but it was a travel, which wasn't a travel. To have that buzzer beater from Queen, to have them advance. They play Florida, so we'll see that. BYU, what a story for BYU. They're playing Alabama. They might get smoked, although we could see the number 60 make it. Arkansas, Texas Tech. Give me Arkansas in that game. What I saw against St. John's, against the best defense, shutting them down and making them 4th bad shots.
Yeah, well, get this. Arkansas didn't have their best shooter out there either. He's going to play in the next round.
There you go. So, and here's another thing about Dan Hurley. The St. John's Arkansas game was probably the worst officiated game that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yet Dan Hurley's complaining about the refs. There was, 30-something free throws in that game for each team?
There's a 42 fouls call.
Patino didn't complain about the refs. You could argue that Kadary Richmond's 5th foul was the stupidest foul ever because all he did was go straight up. It wasn't a foul. There was a foul on Subiedjifor. He went straight up. Patino could have been complaining to the refs in that moment, but at the end of the game, he didn't complain to the fans saying, oh, I hope, let's see, Maryland, I hope they don't screw you like they screwed us. Good luck, Maryland, or Texas Tech. Oh, Texas Tech, they're going to screw you too. No, he's not saying that. Dan Hurley is. Yeah. Dan Hurley is. It's a terrible look. Yeah. And for me pointing it out and then to get hate by UConn fans that I'm a hater by just showing you who Dan Hurley is.
Well, you do go to St. John's.
But I can go to St. John's and then during the St. John's UConn game stare at Dan Hurley and see him every single time out go over to the refs and talk. You're not seeing every coach do that. I'm sorry. You're not seeing every coach do that. And it is a terrible look.
Yeah.
And then he's empathetic about his players leaving. Half my players are already talking to other teams in the transfer portal. Well, here's my thing. If you are the best coach in college basketball,
why would they want to
transfer? How can you not retain them? How can you not retain them? If players really believe in you, right, and your players really love the way you coach, the passion you bring, and you just won back-to-back national championships, why not hold them? Rick Pitino's doing that, and you could argue he just made the worst coaching decision for a player in his entire coaching career in benching R.J. Lewis. Every report is R.J.'s coming back. If he could essentially berate a player and embarrass him on the national stage being the biggest Cinderella team in college basketball, and they're on the biggest stage in a 2-point game, bench the Big East player of the year. And yet there's a report he's coming back, or he might test out the draft, see what his stock is, and then come back. But I've seen no report of RJ Lewis potentially considering leaving St. John's. How come
I'm hoping he comes back.
Dan Hurley can't retain some of his players?
Yeah. I don't know.
Explain to me that, UConn fans. Explain to me that. Hi, everybody. Thank you for watching this clip of the Harvey Hour. If you want to watch the full show, you can by clicking the I in the top right-hand corner right now. If you want to take the show with you on the go, it is available wherever you get your podcast. We go live here on YouTube every single Tuesday and Friday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, and the notification bell to get notified whenever we upload a video and whenever we go live.